Welcome to the next video in the PRP Academy. This video is about the profitability mindset. So profitability mindset, so not just about costs, profit, it's about having a profitability mindset and making decisions that actually affect profitability. So in this video, I'll be basically, with the profitability mindset, it's basically how profitable venues actually think. They don't think as profit as luck. Profit, which I've said many times, is not something you hope for, it's something you plan for. And decisions, and they're what create outcomes. They're not, it's not the outcome you just hope for, it's the decisions behind it that actually affect that outcome. It's also the inputs behind that actually help you make those decisions. So mindset to me is what happens before you even look at systems. So you can't use a system to fix, if it's a poor decision. You need a system to help you make a better decision, but your decision has to be, your mindset has to be right in the first place. Reports by themselves, while they might show you information, show you things, they don't create profit on their own. So it's the mindset, that you need to have to be profitable that actually drives, those decisions and actually helps behaviours that actually make a profitable venue. So when I say profitability side, I'm talking about having the awareness of what you're expecting before action is taken. You're making decisions that before results. And you're controlling inputs, so what you can actually do and what you can actually control, rather than worrying about the outcomes. Because if you get the inputs right, the outcome will be, what you want. But if you can't focus only on the outcome, you're going to miss the levers that actually control that outcome. So one common thing I see with mindset is that we'll see profit at month end. To me, that's too late. You can't do anything about profit once it's already published and known. So it's too late to do anything, And then reports become, and I've had these discussions many times with people, that about becomes a blame game about what did you do? What did you do wrong? And the course is already taken, so it doesn't focus on course correction. So it doesn't focus on taking the right steps and the right actions to make sure that result doesn't happen again. So it's just a final result. It's important to know how you've gone and everything else, but it's not what drives behavior. It's not what drives results, and it's not where you track inputs. It's just, that's the final result of all the other things you've done. So, and common mistake too means you're busy, but you're not, that means you must be profitable, which is not necessarily the case. You can have great revenue, but you can lose money very, very quickly if you're busy and you don't have the inputs right. So, wage creep can hide, it can be lost, it can be out of whack with revenue, and it can look great, but if it's not aligned where it should be, then you've got a loss-making venue, possibly, and that's not what anyone wants. We want to make sure you're profitable, so that means, don't just be busy, make sure that you can actually make sure that business turns into profit. Another one, cost cutting, is a common mistake when people think that it's not part of the profitability mindset. Cost cutting might be great. You can give you some short-term relief, but it can cause long-term damage. For example, if you cut advertising, great, you've saved some money in the short term, but also have you impacted revenue long-term? It misses the real point of what you're trying to achieve. You can cut wages, but does that mean you can't now serve your customers? So you've always got to look at the balance of these things. You've always got to have that goal and that constraint to make sure that you don't cut too far, and you're always thinking about what's the most important venue, and it is revenue. It is still the most important thing. So don't just think about cutting costs. Think about what impact that has on revenue is the most important thing when you're cutting a cost. Another common mistake, finance is the accountant job. It's not. It is an accountant's job, but it's not the accountant's job in the venue. Everyone has to be involved in the financial makeup of the venue. So we're all making decisions. So generally, the accountant's not making any decisions. They're back at the venue. They're just telling you the decisions you've made and giving you guidance. So the managers are the ones that are actually making the decisions that really affect profits. Same as chefs, they're really affecting profits with the decisions they make. For example, if they decide to cut a staff member, and then all of a sudden, before a large booking comes in, then you've possibly lost revenue. So that's a decision which you've made, which is wrong. Or you've left a staff member too long when there's no one there. So that's another one. You've made a decision that affects profit. So these are the things. You don't want decisions to be emotional. You want them to be based on fact. You want them to be based on what you can see. And the ones that have to own the numbers are really the managers and the chefs, because they're in control of the venue. They've got their controllables. They need to make sure that they need to understand the numbers, understand what actions they take affect profit, and what actions that are and some good actions that they can take to actually make profit better. So to me, this is what I think the correct mindset looks like for the profitable mindset. You need to plan the week first. So it's setting up a forecast. So you plan the week. You look at this in the eyes of Perry. It's plan the week. Then when you spend money, you spend with the intent that it's actually helping you generate revenue. So wages are there to actually help you generate revenue. It's something to be controlled, but it's not something to be avoided. It's not something that you actually think if you don't want to underspend, because if you underspend, you affect revenue. You want to review without emotion, so look at facts. So what didn't we get right? What did we get right? And we want to adjust early. So and by doing that, by doing adjusting early, we can actually change the result before it becomes inevitable and before it's too late. You can do some more adjustments, and you can adjust early enough to actually so the profit will be better. But changes when you work with us that you'll notice is that rosters are built from forecasts. So you're looking at your sales and you're aligning that with your roster to that. So you're trying to predict your sales with all sorts of factors, which become clear in the reports that we provide. And your rosters are built from that, not the other way, where you build a roster based on what you think you need, or you just copy the previous week. You base it on what you think the demand will be. And you have so much information you can use to get that, such as you might have function bookings, weather, historical numbers. There's all sorts of inputs that you can, or past inputs and known things that you can put into it to sort of estimate that revenue, with hopefully quite a bit of accuracy. And it's one of those things that the more you build your sales forecast, the more you do it, the better you get at it. The specials, if your behavior changes, if you design specials, they're designed for margin, they're designed to get the place busy. And when you're giving discounts, you're using them intentionally to drive revenue. So it's actually not, we're just giving a discount. We're trying to make a busy night, quiet night busier, or we're trying to get more people in the venue. We're trying to, bring a crowd in to get it, because a crowd brings a crowd. And what you also notice is that when there's variances in what you think, it triggers questions, and it gets you thinking about, well, what could have I done better there, or what went wrong? Was it just as simple as the sales were not as I thought they would be? Was it rained on the day, or did I over roster? So these are all the things, that behavior changes you'll notice as you go through and improve on having that profitability mindset. So this is a bit of a case study of that I've worked with, and this is what they went through. They were very reactive in their decisions. So things would happen, and then all of a sudden they'd react. They weren't planning. Their wage percentage was quite high, like too high for a venue its size. They were very busy, so actually quite good revenue, but very stressed. They weren't making any money, and they had no budgets, no clear plans. So there was no forecasting process, no checking of how things were going through the week, and no review of the numbers, and then just no improvement cycle. So this is the after. We had a weekly rhythm, so meetings, numbers, checking things, clear targets, so that they knew what constraints they had and where they needed to hit, and that led to decisions that actually improved the profitability of the venue. And then, because they knew so much, they had less stress, and they were able to control things a lot better. And I always find that obstacle of, are we making money, always opens up other things. Your mind becomes free to focus on the most important thing in a venue. What can we do to get revenue up? And I'd say nearly every venue we've worked with, that's what the end result would be. The stress disappears, the creativity appears, and revenue goes up as well. So I reinforce this, my peps, with what I do. So we go through with our reporting weekly forecasting and making sure that you're doing weekly forecasting. We want to see some bit of visibility, a bit of an idea of what's going to happen before trade even begins. So we want to make sure that the actions you take, you're accountable for and you're asked questions about. And we're looking at the data. We're not looking at the emotional side of it, just the data. Because the numbers is a very common thing. Numbers don't lie. Numbers don't have emotion. They're objective. And that's what we want with numbers. That's why, these reports become so important. And one thing to remember, just remember this, most important thing, profit is an outcome. It's an outcome of many, many, many micro decisions that have happened throughout the week. Those decisions are all inputs. Profit is an output. Decisions have happened first. So you've made decisions, and then the profit is the result at the end. And Perry, plan. I always think in terms of, you've got to plan, you've got to execute, you've got to review results, and then you have to work on improvement. So, so this is obviously some self-reflection questions. So you have to sort of think, where do you see yourself in this mindset? Are you reactive? Are you proactive? What decisions are you making blindly? Are you just creating a roster without thinking about your sales? And what would you change with a plan? So would you start with a plan, would you maybe roster less, or would you roster more? Because it can go both ways. If you've got a plan and you see your COGS are not going to plan, would you change your COGS? Or, would be meaning maybe lift your prices or renegotiate with suppliers if you can see that the COGS weren't correct. So these are the things that you might want to think about And when you're, when you're reflecting and when you're looking through this, how are you doing these things now? Just finally, at Profitability Partners, it's our motto of always improving. It's our number one thing that we always try and do, because if you're improving, you can't, my point is you can't stay the same. So if you're not trying to improve, then you'll be getting worse. So we always try and improve, because that's the mindset that actually leads to great results. Thank you.